When it comes to the backlog, you know, as you know, it's challenging to get numbers. One, because we track by issues, not human beings, and the second is, we continue to get tens of thousands of claims every week, so it's difficult to keep track. I feel pretty confident. Barbara might clarify this answer, but we were really focused on getting through the PUA folks who had been waiting for a resolution. So I think we've caught up to sort of everybody who had applied by the time the task force was created, the strike force. And now we're really focused by issue on getting through folks that have come in since then. So, dealing with identity, we're sending about 50,000 ID me requests to new applications we've had that we need that verification. And we also had a quarter change, which means we again have to look at, did you have UI eligibility? So the welfare folks, I think, are spending this week and next on getting through that. So in PUA, at least, we're getting very close to having a resolution for most of the folks who have come in. And we're still looking at, in UI, we need to implement the special session regulations to resolve about 20,000 of those claims. We're still working on the programming for that. And then just have people processing those claims. Barbara, did you have something to add to that?
No, I think that's about right. We continue to add staff. Between the staffing and the automation, again, we're hoping to see large amounts of clearances in the next 2 weeks.
Perfect. And then phone lines, are any of these workers going to be jumping on the phone lines? What's up with that?
Yeah, we certainly hoped we would be able to answer a lot higher percentage of calls by now, and it's still not where it should be, for sure. We had some issues that came up this week that sort of increased the call volume when it had been going down, so that that made it a little tougher. This week and next, we're adding about 50 staff from a contract staffing. And it's just, we have to get them set up so they have access to both systems, which takes a little bit of time through our IT department. But we expect them to start making a difference. And as usual, we get new folks and it takes them a week or two to kind of get up to speed. But we are adding 50 new folks, and we're looking at redeploying a large chunk of the welfare folks, maybe up to 50 of them, in the next week or two. So we are committed to making it work, and it's just getting all the pieces in place and getting folks sort of up to speed.
Yeah. So yesterday, Rosa did update me. Week 5 of lost wages will be happening. When, and is there any status on week 6? I know it goes by a weekly basis on how much money goes out.
Right. We're actually still, we have a few more payments for week 4 to go this week. So next week we will start week 5. And as we've said before, PUA gets to go out like in 1 day. So that will go out by Thanksgiving. And it takes us about 10 days to roll out all of the regular UI folks. So they'll have that in the next 2 weeks. We have requested an amendment to our grant from FEMA to accommodate all the new people that have filed that would be eligible, and we have not yet heard back. So we're still looking at it. We've done what we can, and now we have to hear back from FEMA.
Perfect. I know this week there's a lot going on. Overpayment notices were dropped for a lot of people. You guys had sent me a couple of reasons why. Can you briefly just describe why so many went out this week?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what Mike was saying, is that when the pandemic first hit, we really were sort of focused on getting benefits out to folks. So a lot of people got PUA benefits, and then as we looked deeper into their claims, it turned out they had UI wages that they should have applied for and exhausted their benefits in the UI system. That's the federal law. We don't have any flexibility around that. So if you got those PUA payments and then we later were able to move you over to UI to get benefits there, those PUA payments would be overpayments. So that's a big chunk of folks that are getting these notices. And the other largest group is folks where what they filled out in their application in terms of income and what their documentation shows their self-employment income to be don't match. And so they maybe got benefits that were higher than what the documentation would warrant. So they would have been getting higher weekly benefits than we can allow based on the documentation. So they would have a little bit of an overpayment as well. Those are the two biggest buckets, we think. So the important thing for folks to know is, there's instructions in that overpayment notice about how to appeal these decisions, and any determination that DETR has made can be appealed. So if you disagree with the weekly benefit amount, if you agree with the fact that there is an overpayment, if you disagree with the overpayment amount, you can appeal that. And it's very important for claimants to follow the instructions and file those appeals within the time frame that's outlined. And if they agree that there is an overpayment, they can contact our benefit protection payment control office and set up a payment plan. So that's the other thing they can do.
Do you have a timeline on how long appeals are estimated to be taking for an individual? Because I talked to a couple who have 2 appeals, they were in review and they've been in review for a while. Yeah,
this is where we're still working on the automation piece. To do an appeal, it's sort of a semi-legal process. So we have to pull all the documentation together, and we just got that module online in PUA, and we're still working out some of the details. So we have had a few hundred scheduled, and we know we have about 700 or 800 that are sort of ready to go and be scheduled, but we're just working through that first couple hundred to sort of get the process, all the pieces in place. And then once we get it set up so that it's working smoothly, we should be able to get through them pretty quickly, but we're just not quite there yet.
Okay.
Joe, I wanted to mention one other thing on the overpayments. It's important to note that some folks may get a overpayment notice on their PUA benefits, and then they get an overpayment notice on the federal $600 bump. The $600 bump, that overpayment can be waived. The PUA overpayments themselves cannot be waived under federal law. Yesterday, I sent a request to the congressional delegation asking them that if they're looking at reauthorization of PUA, allow states to waive the overpayments retroactively back to the beginning of the program. Because some people made honest mistakes, right? We asked for their net wages. Let's say they were an Uber driver. Uber gives them a statement saying what their net wages are, right? So they include that. But it's not the net from their occupation that they report to the IRS. So they may have made a mistake. If in regular unemployment, states can waive overpayments when it's due to no fault of their own. It would be against equity and good conscience to require the overpayment. That's the kind of language we want to see in PUA as well. So we're hoping to get some positive news from our congressional delegation on that point.
Okay, good. Thanks for throwing that in there. I appreciate that. Obviously, cases are going up. Are you guys concerned about another shutdown? And is there anything you guys are doing to prepare for a possible another shutdown? Because that could mean another whole wave of unemployment claimants.
Yeah, the governor isn't talking about that. We're just talking about sort of increasing the caution that people are taking and the precautions people are taking. I know we are at DETR re-looking again at are there more folks we can have work from home? Are there more ways to space people out and keep our employees safe? And so I think that we are, our goal has always been to process and resolve as many cases as possible. My concern for folks is everybody really needs to be looking ahead at, what can we be doing to sort of protect ourselves and do everything we can to get our economic situation under control. Several of these benefit programs like PUA and the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, which adds extra weeks to UI, those expire at the end of the year unless Congress acts. I don't know when. I do believe Congress will act, but we don't know when. So people need to be prepared. There may be a disruption in benefits. People need to be thinking about that, and that there's not anything the state can do about that. That is a federal situation. And so the other thing we're really encouraging people to do is think about, is it time to get new skills training, new certificates, go back to school, because some of these jobs, it's going to be a long time before they come back. So we're very concerned overall. I think the state is doing everything it can to help get people back to work, but some of this is in Congress's hands.
Yeah, are you worried about another wave of, claimants? If there is a possible shutdown and people are put out, is there anything you can do to prepare for that? Because I know it'd just be a massive more backlog, I think.
Yeah, it's it's definitely a worry, Joe. We know people will be desperate for benefits. The one good thing that we've done to prepare is some of the issues like deductible income. Let's say an employer is able to give a week's severance. Thanks to SB3, the legislature and the governor, that won't hold up benefits like it did before.
Okay.
So that's one proactive thing we've done. Another thing that's not ready yet, but we recommended, in the state of Georgia, they have the employers start all the unemployment benefits. Because employees, right, it may be the first time they've ever had to file for unemployment, and the system is foreign. Well, if you have trained HR people that can assist, it can reduce the backlogs and make the system go smoother. We're not ready to launch that yet, but it's one of the recommendations from the strike force to do in the future.
Now quickly here before we run out of time, I know that the recent update we got this week showed a 40% decrease in new initial PUA claims, but there was a increase in extended benefits and something was still being looked into. Can you guys elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts in unemployment. So in regular unemployment, it lasts for 26 weeks. So we're now seeing a lot of folks run out of that. They move over to the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, which is something Congress put in place. That's 13 weeks, 13 weeks, I think. And then that expires also at the end of the year unless Congress acts. And then under certain circumstances, then those folks can move on to state extended benefits. So that's part of what you're seeing is people moving from one program to another as they exhaust different benefit programs. PUA, the PUA numbers have fluctuated pretty wildly from week to week. We had we did have for the 2 previous weeks, we had a pretty big spike, and we don't have any good idea about why. We're still sort of looking at those claims. And that's why you see it come down something like 40%, is it's now back down to sort of normal numbers that we would expect.
Whenever I try and do a story, there's also people who reach out to me like, what about us who have applied in the spring and we still haven't gotten anything? Any word for those folks out there?
Yeah, Joe, one of the things that we're doing with our new administrator for unemployment, who was appointed a couple weeks ago, we've asked for a list of any claim from the beginning that is not processed to see if any have fallen through between the cracks, while we have sent a large amount of claims to be verified through ID.me so that we can catch those, because we want every claim assigned, right? And we feel like we have every claim assigned, but we don't want to miss anyone. And I think the people who reach out to you and reach out to us, they're the ones that are falling between the cracks, and we got to get every one of those resolved.
Is there any time frame you could put on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's our hope for the PUA system to do all of these in the next 2 weeks. I mean, we feel like we're at the bottom of resolution for PUA, and then we want to put the extra resources, the labor, on the UI claims, and then do the automation changes from SB3 to clear out another 20,000 from UI. That's the plan. People are desperate. We need to get to their claims.
Yeah, no, we hear the stories all the time, and it definitely is something that obviously people are getting desperate because they need the money. I'm hearing a lot of stories about people. What is the best way for someone to reach out to DETR right now if they're trying to get questions answered? I know a lot of people are having issues with the maiden name sort of thing. I know a lot of people are having issues just trying to get through on a phone line, or they might have an issue with their portal. What's the best way for someone to get through, in your guys' opinion?
I would say a couple of things. I think a lot of the folks I've seen calling or emailing or texting me is they've got a decision that they don't like. They've been found ineligible and they disagree. And if you have had a decision that DETR made that you disagree with, the best possible thing to do is to follow the instructions on that notification and file an appeal, because there's a timeline for filing an appeal. And I know it's very frustrating because for some people, they just want an explanation and they just want to talk to someone and have them walk them through their claim. But those appeal rights are sort of limited by time. So that's an important thing for people to do, is file an appeal if they don't like the decision. We have been updating our sort of frequently asked questions on the website. They still could be made a little more easy to follow, but we're working on updating those. So that's a place they might get an answer. And we are adding folks to the phones. So the things I keep saying about the phones are Monday and Tuesday are the heaviest days, so don't call then. The first thing in the morning is not good. That's pretty hectic. And by 3 or 4, most days, the queue where people can hold is shut off. So the best time to call is in the middle of the day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Those are my tips. I don't know if Barbara has any others.
No, I think that sums it up.
Perfect. So back to appeals real quick. I keep thinking of these different scenarios that I've talked to. Someone was told that they owe a certain amount, like I believe around $14,000 by November 11th. They want to appeal. Is there any sort of repercussion for someone like that if they're not paying that by the 30th, but they're waiting for their appeal to be reviewed?
No, people have the right to have an appeal, and there's no repercussions. That an appeal referee will then determine whether or not they owe it. And, you know, I think the other thing about these overpayments, Joe, is that people shouldn't get too stressed out about them. I know it's stressful to get a notice, but look, if they're out of work, they're out of work, right? The important thing is that if they think it's legally wrong, to file their appeal, to have an independent referee look at it, right? And at that point later on, they can look at a repayment plan, they can look to when they get a job. But, you know, people are under a lot of stress right now. And I think what they need to do is appeal it if they think it's wrong. Don't get too stressed out about it. The state's going to work with them.
Okay. Sorry, another example, someone who had claimed their money, they were told to do PUA, but then eventually later told to be in UI and they got switched over. But then all the disqualifications in PUA are still there. And then they got an overpayment for PUA to pay money back. That sort of situation is a little tricky because they're still getting paid in UI, but they technically had something in PUA. Is that because that account was open in PUA and that's why that was sent?
Yeah, people can't receive double payments from both systems.
Well, he wasn't getting payments from PUA. It was just UI because he was disqualified in PUA.
Yeah, then he shouldn't owe an overpayment. I mean, if he didn't get the money, he wouldn't have to pay anything back. And if the system, again, DETR's a little dependent on its vendors who create these systems. If the system generated an overpayment notice and someone didn't get the money, they should appeal that because it's wrong and it will be corrected.
Okay, good to know. I think of any other questions I had. I think I know we're running out of time here, but you guys basically answered all of those. Any suggestions for anybody else out there if they're looking to file here in the near future? I know we're on the brink of California just had a little shutdown like that. Any suggestions for people?
If they're newly laid off, I think it's important to kind of, not panic and maybe look at the website first, learn a little bit about the system so that they, don't answer questions wrong. There are some guidance on the website, like for example, if sometimes the question might be, are you looking for work, right? And people will panic and they'll answer it wrong and then it will hang up their claim. So, feel free to just, take a moment, look at the website, look at some of the instructions first, because it's easier for them and the system if they don't make a mistake when they're filling out the forms.
And I think that's a worry because a lot of people obviously know someone on unemployment and they've heard some of the issues they've had and they're nervous
Right.
to do it themselves because they don't want to mess something up and then end up with an overpayment notification or something like that.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's something we can look at too, if we can give, the top 5 things people do wrong. Like one thing we see on unemployment, for example, is people will say, well, I was discharged, right? Well, they were laid off. But then it's confusing because under federal law, you get unemployment if you were laid off, but if you were discharged for misconduct, you don't. So it's kind of how they're characterizing it. So, I mean, I think that's something that DETR can do better, right? Maybe on its website, look at the frequently asked questions or the things people do wrong to make the system go a little smoother. And we've already, decided that that's something we need to do. So check out the website.
Last question here. I know COVID, obviously cases are going up. You guys are trying to take precautions. Is there anything delaying anything at the department offices in Las Vegas or even up north? I know that you did have a case not too long ago that kind of had to be cleaned and everything like that.
Right. We actually we had a cleaning protocol, and of course we're following all the governor's guidance on best practices about working safely. What happens is we did have the call center have to call down or close down for a deep cleaning, and then so the call center in the north picks up those calls. So we've got 2 things going. One is we've put in place a more aggressive cleaning protocol. So we're cleaning on a regular basis to help reduce any cases of COVID. And we are working to get the technology in place to be able to send some of our call center staffers to be able to work from home. We just don't have the phone system yet. This again is that modernizing systems for the state. We may save money in the short term by not making these investments, but then something like this hits and it's very difficult to respond. So we are sort of upping our cleaning and safety protocols to keep folks safe and at work.
Perfect. Barbara, anything to add to that? Or are you good?
No, it's, you know, as a volunteer, I look at the challenges DETR has, right? It's computer systems. It's vendors let them down. They think something's going to be done a week ago, and then the vendor doesn't complete the project. Or COVID happens, right? You know, we had hoped to get some computer changes done quicker, but the person who was programming them came down with COVID, right? So DETR has the same issues, HR issues that most businesses have, right? And it's complicated, and it sets them back, even though they're trying their best on some areas to get things done. But you know, there's a lot of people working really hard. So
Yeah, and Joe, I would just add one other thing for
Yeah.
folks who are who find themselves unemployed and need to file. You know, what we don't talk about is there are about 300,000 Nevadans who are getting continuing welfare, or sorry, that was my previous job. There are about 300,000 Nevadans who are getting continued unemployment benefits on a weekly basis between UI, the extended benefits, and PUA. So for a lot of Nevadans, this program is working, and it is providing support and a lifeline, which is helping to keep literally hundreds of thousands of Nevadans in their homes and able to take care of their families. It isn't designed to be a continual income source, but it is designed to be a bridge to get back to a place where they can be working again. So for a lot of folks, even though we focus on the problems, for many Nevadans, this program is working and providing critical support.
Perfect. Thank you for that. All right, I will stop recording this.